can talk her out of a relationship. You can talk. We do that.
Yes,
we will talk.
I'm gonna say something, and this might ruffle little feathers. I don't think just being a good man is enough to stay in a relationship with them.
But when I say a good man, I mean like he's good. That means all around. That means himself, spiritually, mentally, physically.
That's great.
Healthily, like he's a good man.
That doesn't mean that he's the man for you. And maybe when you're going through these motions of getting to know him, you're realizing, okay, he's a great person, but honestly, I don't fuck with his humor. Like, he could be funny, but he's not funny to me.
And that's why a lot of modern women are getting 40 with 4 cats and no man, because
maybe that's what
he's a good man, but because he's not funny, you gotta throw that out. Sometimes a woman can talk her.
All right, shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakagodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I'm just going to go into, the so-called black woman. And I'm going to entitle this lesson, She That Is Thine Enemy, or She That Is Mine Enemy. So Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. I'm going to start in the book of Micah chapter 7 and verse 10. And it says, Then she that is thine enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her, which said unto me, Where is the Lord thy power? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire in the streets. Yes, as we should know, we're approaching, we're still approaching the time of Jacob's trouble. Those that are primarily going to be affected by, the trouble to come is mainly going to be women, in particular black women, because, they're proud. Excuse me. They have this proud attitude. They feel like they don't need a man, and it's not, for the sisters out there that may be, trying to, live their lives right. It's mainly to, the women that aren't right. Because there's a lot of them that are going to be judged severely, And then I'm going to go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 56. And it says, The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for one of all things, and secretly, Slakia, for she shall eat them for one of all things, secretly, in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. And yes, part of that is going into 70 AD, because we had to commit cannibalism, because, the Romans seized Jerusalem. They chased us out of our land. Henceforth why, we had to flee into, northern and western Africa. But again, that same thing is going to take place. These women today that have children, once the famine hits, some of them are going to eat their children. But, the modern woman, in particular, the modern, so-called black woman, she has an evil eye, toward her husband or towards the men of her nation, the so-called Israelite man, in particular, the so-called black man, she has an evil sluggy. She has an evil eye toward him and toward her children, Hence the reason why, the abortion rate is up high, among, so-called black women, and it's sad. It is, but again, this is all by design. Our women, act this way toward us. They're adulterous, they're proud. They pretty much, have become heartless because spiritually, we committed fornication against the Most High. He pretty much, gave us a reminder through our women, while we're suffering these curses because, the Most High, Yahweh, He was our husband. We committed adultery. Henceforth, He cursed us by having our women be, out of order. That's why, and this, just an example of the clip that I featured, she says, a good man isn't enough. Well, I'm not sure what she's looking for, but, she's going to regret that soon. And I'm going to go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 3. It's like in this book of Isaiah, chapter 3, and verse 16, and then the title reads, Judah's women denounced, and in particular, this is talking about the so-called Judite women, the so-called black women. This is Isaiah chapter 3 and verse 16. Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet, having a jewelry, on their ankles, and their shoes as well. Verse 17, therefore the Lord will smite, therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their calls, and their round tires like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs, and the headbands, and the tablets and the earrings, the rings and nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel, and the mantles, and the wimples, and the crisping pins, the glasses, and the fine linen, and the hoods, and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be a stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and instead of slaki and burning, instead of beauty, And this is pretty much going into the curses that the so-called black women are suffering. Most black women are bald. They, not exactly bald, but they don't have a lot of hair. That's a curse because they're, so-called Israelite women's hair is supposed to be down to the ground. That is the woman's glory. Her hair is a covering for her. So the Lord smote them with baldness. Another curse, some of them, certain women smell bad. They don't have good hygiene. And again, this isn't to bash all women, but at the same time, the things that I'm bringing out is true. It's written in the scriptures. there's a lot of Israelite women that don't have good hygiene. And, you know, they're out of shape. That's a curse as well. You know, being fat. You know, most Israelite women, you know, they're fat. The women are supposed to weigh more than the men, you know. That's a curse, you know, that they're suffering. But again, these are the curses that the women are suffering in particular. You know, the Israelite women, in particular the so-called black women. You know, she's suffering from these things. It's like you. She's suffering from these things, you know, because of her wickedness. You know. And I'm going to go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 4 and verse 1. And this is going into, you know, what's going to take place during the time of Jacob's trouble. You know. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel, only let us be called by thy name, to take away our reproach. And yes, you know, when all hell breaks loose, you know, there's going to be a lot of women out here that are going to be defenseless, you know, because a lot of men are going to be put to death. So, you know, women are going to be looking for, you know, any man, in particular a man of the Lord, you know, to pretty much keep them safe, you know, to take away their shame in that day, you know. But there's going to be a lot of women that are going to be rejected, you know, because they don't really have anything to offer. I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 30. Slovakia. Slovakia. It's the wrong chapter. The wrong book. It's the book of Proverbs. But before I go to that, book of Proverbs, chapter 9, and verse 13, and it says, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city, to call passengers who go right on their ways. Slovakia. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither, and ask for him that wanteth understanding. She saith to him, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. No, you know, that's not going into, you know, the actual place underground, you know, that's burning with fire called hell, you know. But this is one thing that women do, they entice men. You know, hell ultimately, you know, is the grave. You know, hell is a condition that's played out on earth, but ultimately, you know, hell is the grave. And women are one of the primary reasons why, you know, a lot of men get killed. You know, women set men up. You know, they set, you know, snares for men to get caught up in certain situations. You know. And I'm gonna go to Slovakia, Proverbs chapter 30. Verse 20. And And it says, such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. Excuse me. So, most so-called black women, they're adulterous, They get with a decent man, and ultimately, he could, treat her right, take care of her, ultimately for her to go out and commit adultery. There's many examples, out there where women, pretty much cheat on their husbands, for whatever reason. But, this is right now in their nature, they're adulterous women. And, they pretty much don't see anything wrong with it. It's normal to them. I'm going to go back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 23. And this is verse 17. And it says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. So the daughters of Israel, they're supposed to, no Israelite woman is supposed to be a whore, or Israelite women are supposed to have a husband, be married off to another Israelite man. But, under this current captivity that we're in, this Babylonian, modern Babylonian captivity, it's hard because, we're in captivity under Esau, Edom, in his system. And then us being in captivity, our women, pretty much aren't ours. Our women won't be our women fully until, we get in the kingdom. Until then, the so-called Israelite woman, in particular the so-called black woman, she's against us. I want to go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 25, and verse 17. And it says, the wickedness of a woman changeth her face, and darkeneth her countenance like sackcloth. Her husband shall sit among his neighbors, and when he heareth it, shall sigh bitterly. A prime example is when, a man may be out, in public, or, just, among, his brethren, and his wife may, tell their business, it's embarrassing, because she's supposed to honor her husband, but, he's pretty much grieved in the spirit because, he's dealing with a wicked woman, Verse 19, all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. Sluggy, as the climbing up a sandy way is to the feet of the aged, so is the wife full of sluggy. As the climbing up a sandy way is to the feet of the aged, so is the wife full of words to a quiet man. Stumble not at the beauty of a woman, and desire her not for pleasure. A woman, if she maintain her husband, is full of anger, impudence, and much reproach. A wicked woman abateth the courage, maketh an heavy countenance and a wounded heart. A woman that will not comfort her husband in distress maketh weak hands and feeble knees. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die. That's going into, the story of Adam and Eve, because Eve was in transgression, And no, there was not a literal snake that she was talking to. The serpent was a man, you know. Who we know today as Esau Edom was the serpent in the garden, you know, because he was subtle. You know, he deceived Eve into, you know, taking on the knowledge. But ultimately they learned, you know, the knowledge of evil as well, you know, but that's pretty much, you know, why, you know, we're going through this as well, you know, because we had to learn both sides, you know, we had to learn righteousness as well as wickedness to know that, you know, ultimately we're supposed to be living, you know, righteously. I'm going to go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 26. In verse 12, and it says, "She will open her mouth as a thirsty traveler when he hath found a fountain, and drink of every water near her. By every hedge she will sit down." Slakia, will she sit down? "And open her quiver against every arrow." Now, you know, just to, you know, pretty much put it bluntly, you know, she's pretty much going to spread her legs for every man that comes her way. You know, these wicked women, you know, they pretty much sleep around with, you know, as many men as they can. But it's not supposed to be like that. A woman is only supposed to be with one man. But, you know, again, being that, you know, we're in captivity, we're up under these curses, you know, we're pretty much, you know, the nation of Israel is pretty much, you know, in a very low condition right now, you know. And it's easy, you know, to figure it out. All you have to do to figure out, you know, the Slacky, I forget how it was, you know, worded because brothers say it as well. But if you pretty much want to find out the condition of a nation, you just have to look at their women. And right now you can look at the Israelite women and tell that, you know, the nation of Israel right now, we're in a low condition. We're in hell right now. You know, we're in captivity still. But, you know, we're almost up. You know, this current captivity is almost up. You know, and then just to balance it out, you know, verse 13, "The grace of a wife delighteth her husband, and her discretion will fatten his bones. A silent and loving woman is a gift of the Lord, and there is nothing so much worth as a mind well instructed." It's like he has a mind well instructed. "A shamefaced and faithful woman is a double grace, and her continent mind cannot be valued. As the sun, when it ariseth in the high heaven, so is the beauty of a good wife in the ordering of her house. As the clear light is upon the holy candlestick, so is the beauty of the face in ripe age. As the golden pillars are upon the sockets of silver, so are the fair feet with a constant heart." You know. And then I'm going to jump down to verse 22. And it says, "An harlot shall be counted as spittle, but a married woman is a tower against death to her husband. A wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord. A dishonest woman that contemneth shame, but an honest woman will reverence her husband. A shameless woman shall be counted as a dog, but She that is shamefaced will fear the Lord. A woman that honoreth her husband shall be judged wise of all, but she that dishonoreth him in her pride shall be counted ungodly of all. A loud crying woman and a scold shall be sought out to drive away the enemies. You know, and again, this is pretty much, to, get on the so-called black woman, and it's not to, make this video to stir up controversy or anything like that, because, pretty much, it has to be said, the women of the nation of Israel, not all of them, but, the majority of them, they're not right, they're not right. They hate the men, they hate order, but they're gonna be in order. Once Jacob's trouble takes place, they're gonna get in order, but ultimately, a lot of women are gonna be judged, because of their wickedness. But again, the point of this lesson, I want to make pretty much to, go into, the reason why our women are the way they are, while they're suffering, the curses that they're suffering. And ultimately is because, the men of the nation of Israel, primarily, we turned our backs on the Heavenly Father, and He turned His back on us. And it's the reason why our women are the way they are. But, we have grace through our Lord Yahushua Mashiach. And through Him, He's going to help us join back to the Father. So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Kakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who are learned this truth. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I see you, Shalom.